long histories with the Hulkster. Can you share some stories on Hulk Hogan? And you know what? Here's a good question with Hulk Hogan that's related to him. Was there a bit of an envy on the NWA side when he hit it big in '84, and then he wasn't working the same style as you guys? It wasn't going out there bumping. Yet he had all of fame.
No,
we never thought about it.
No.
And what I love him to death. But Harley used to walk out on TV and go, "That plastic champion," and then guy. You just can't talk about someplace you're gonna end up going someday. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And I never said a word. I always got along with Hogan. We had major differences of opinion because he had creative control all the time, and I was the only guy that would work with him.
Right.
Vader, when he wouldn't work with Vader, he wouldn't work with Rude. So when he came into WCW, ta-da! Good Lord.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing that ever happened in business, was giving a wrestler creative control. That was the end, because that for WCW ultimately killed WCW. Well, that and the fact they're paying guys that weren't worth nearly what they were getting paid. You know what I mean? But everybody was doing their own thing, and the WCW was divided. I told you this before. It was 4 different factions. It was NWO over here, Hulk and Randy over here, Sting and Luger over here, and wherever and then whatever I was doing.
Hogan had pretty good psychology in the sense that, he reminded me of my brother Bruce's psychology. His psychology, which only worked really for Hogan, was to have the whole world fall on him. If he had 10 guys on him, he would, he liked to fight against insurmountable odds. And Hogan had the look that he could, when he started knocking these guys down and cleaning house on 6 or 7 guys and dumping the manager, and it was believable, and it always got that reaction. But if Hogan's psychology, if he was 210 pounds, or he was like Brian Blair's size, and that psychology would have meant nothing. He had no psychology whatsoever. But he was the star of the company and had a way, and the way the characters that he had, from Killer Khan to Kamala to all these big giant monster heels back then, Bundy, one after another, he was able to. That was kind of the beauty of how they built Hogan, was that he was able to carry it off, and he looked like a real. It was the muscles and he had the right look, and he was. I wouldn't say there was anything wrong with his psychology, is what he needed at the time to get where he did. And I think that was probably Vince's psychology more than anything else.
As I recall, a lot of us thought that if Hogan had just answered the question, it would have just gone. Everything would have been just gone away. But it was the lie that got him. It's like
Right.
Nixon. It's like, as soon as he lied about it, everybody groaned and went, here's this guy, like, come on, like, denying that he was on steroids. Anyway, the way Hogan handled it was so poorly done. Like, he was so pathetic how he handled it, rather than just sort of owning up to it, or giving some kind of an answer that would have sufficed. But I think he brought a tidal wave of headache and nightmare for everybody. And business really dropped off almost automatic as soon as all that through that whole period.
The company does institute a drug policy early in the year, I guess as a result of this and some of the other pieces that were coming out. Was it legitimately enforced?
I think so. I mean, it was for me. I think for most of the guys. I mean, there may be exceptions to the rule. I know lots of guys tried their hardest to cheat when they needed to. Some of them got away with it. I mean, but it was not easy to do, and it was a game of chance. I know personally that for me it wasn't a big issue. I never wasn't too worried about passing or failing a drug test. I mean,
This was for many years talked about as kind of a dream match. And why didn't the Hogan Flair thing work?
Well, I think because probably the egos, in the sense that two guys both had Hogan had a set routine way he worked. He could only work a certain way. Had to work the Hulk Hogan kind of way. And Ric Flair was just the same mentality. He was set in his own ways of how he had basically, both of them were two guys that had the same match every night so when you mix them together and say, okay, now try to mix and combine, they were at a loss as to how to do that.
Does a booker, a promoter, somebody, is it their job to pull the guys and say, listen, this isn't going to work unless one of you starts to dance to somebody's music?
I suspect, I'm guessing, but I'm sure Vince tried.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I'm thinking that, I'm sure there was a lot of reasoning there. Hey, like Hulk Hogan was a 9 out of 10 promo, 9 out of 10 look, 1 out of 10 wrestler.
I talked to Hulk the morning after he did I texted him and said, hey, good job on Good Morning America. And he called me immediately, like, hey, brother, you know, he was really amped up and, you know, nervous too, because like, wow, you know, they have the edit, so I don't know what's going to happen. And when people ask me about it, I've been around Hulk a lot and never have seen anything but kindness and generosity from the guy. I've never seen any racism thing going on. But I think it was nearly 9 years ago, and his life was in a way different spot then. You know, his son Nick had just been involved in that tragedy. He's going through a brutal divorce, you know, where his ex-wife is running around with some guy that went to school with his kids. I mean, a lot of stuff going on. He's paying a lot of money out of his own pocket to help his daughter Brooke get her hip-hop career going. And the thing that stands out to me, you know, to me, I think what I've heard is just the excerpts. I didn't hear anything. I read like some lines from the tape or whatever. And it seems like he's reflecting on it. He's kind of going, well, maybe I am a racist. I mean, doesn't he say that once or twice? Are you familiar with it? Seems to me like he was reflecting on it, going, oh, maybe I am a racist, because I think it dawned on Hulk, and I have a daughter who's young, and she's younger than Brooke, but I think you're going, you know, he's trying to get her into hip-hop. Then it dawned on him, well, hip-hop's controlled by a lot of young, rich black guys, and now I want to bang my hot daughter. And I think he's kind of like, whoa, you know. Do I think he'll be back? I hope so. I turned down lots of interview requests about this because I didn't want to talk about it until Hulk talked about it. My position is, you think after nearly a 35-year relationship with the WWE that they'd have taken a different position. I think they would have said, we're going to look into it, and then I think they should have recommended some kind of counseling or sensitivity training or something like that. The thing that gets me the most is people are concerned about, well, Hulk said the N-word. Not the fact that he's banging his buddy's wife during this video. Like, that's okay. You can have sex with somebody else's wife, but for God's sakes, don't say the N-word, is the message, right? Like, no one even says that he was still married, the guy's married, so it's adultery, full-blown adultery, which is like one of the 10, but don't say the N-word.
Imagine it was a black girl in bed.
Whoa, you said it, not me.
The quadruple whammy.
When it comes to the aspect of drawing money, like what works. I mean, he has a steadfast, but he also he had gotten stagnated, and then like being with Scott and I, like we kind of gave him like our opinion. He took our opinion and put it with his opinion, and it kind of changed him a little bit, not a lot, but I think that, you know, that transition from those, like from that character to Hollywood to that in-between character, like he went out and stole WrestleMania with Rock, stole WrestleMania with Vince. I mean, he stole like several big shows, you know, and it was him. It was Hulk doing that.
I don't think this can be overstated enough. I've talked to you on camera about it. I talked to Bischoff about it. There's no earthly reason that Hulk Hogan, the Hulk Hogan I grew up with, the only Hulk Hogan that anybody knew in 1995 or whatever, was the big, overblown promos to the point of unbelievable, maybe, because that's, you know, we need cartoons in the 80s. There's no earthly reason that Hulk Hogan should have succeeded in the model of what the NWO was. No way that square peg should have went in the round hole. Yet it did, and he was able to run with that. And phase 2 of Hogan's career.
But they also did a good job. They did a really good job. The first time we went down to cut NWO promos, we went down there, and Scott and I have always just talked in sound bites. And we were, hey, babe, bro, babe, we were going back and forth being chill. And Hogan just went on like a 5-minute rant. And every time the ball was in his court, he just, brother, let me tell you, brother, let me tell you, son, brother. So we got done for like the first 2 hours, and we went out, and there was a picnic bench out there. And I looked at Scott, and I said, dude. And he would look at me like, we're looking at each other like, this is not going to fucking work. So Eric, who's very fucking smart, was like, walked out there like, he goes, we can make this work. He goes, edit-wise, we can make this work.
Right.
And they did that. They just sound those black and white interviews. Then when Hogan went out there, he started to modify what he was doing to the point where it was, you know, he did a lot more talking and a lot less brothering.
One could tell that it was trimmed to be favorable. But something I always saw that I don't even know if it's true, I never asked anybody, was the decision to go black and white, shaky, grainy, distracting. Was it to kind of put a haze over the face and all that shit that Hogan was doing? Was the decision made after filming?
Yes.
Okay.
And Hogan, Hogan was a big player there, all the way up until the very end. Had Hogan changed at all, personally, professionally, since the years earlier where you worked with him?
You know what? I can't really say. No, he hadn't changed, because he was always really good to me. And our matches were always real easy. It wasn't, wasn't pulling teeth. He wouldn't, so no, he didn't change towards me.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Hogan Knows Best?
I've seen a little bit of it.
What do you think?
My opinion, I think, is bad for him.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and I'll give you a good example. One of the things that exposes him is an old man. He walks around old, looks old, talks old,
right.
Talks all about his bad points. Then, they were in Memphis just a month ago.
Yep.
And here it is. They were on every radio station, every live television station, everything. He was talking about how now he's got a new viewing audience from VH1, Hogan Knows Best, and they barely did 2,000 people in a 25,000 seat arena.
Yeah, it's been the talk of business for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
It was really horrible, but they picked. I think what they should have done is stuck what they were supposed to have done, and that was work the angle, which is not really an angle, but it was supposed to have been the last wrestling show at the Mid-South Coliseum, and they would have pulled in some of the people at the place they went to. It cost $10 to park.
Wow.
And then it was so much to get in, and it wasn't well done. They did no promotional stuff till the day or a few days before the show.
Did they contact you at all to do anything on the show?
They asked me about it. I told them I wasn't interested unless I was main event.
Yeah.
And then at the Coliseum, and then then they moved it to the Forum, FedEx Forum, and of course Vince said anybody who works for that show will never work for me, and that's where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't interested.
Now, back to WCW, were you surprised that, some people think they gave away a lot of money by putting so many of those matches you had with Hogan on free TV rather than saving it for pay-per-view?
In WCW?
Yes.
You know what? This is I don't really believe that, because we never had a singles match, or if we did, it was always...
You did on Nitro a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about that is, I don't believe that, first of all, I wasn't in the angle with him when I was doing those matches. I was shooting for the big deal with Goldberg.
Right.
But now when me and Hogan shot our first angle, it was down in Miami, when I turned on him, and we were scheduled to come back in the pay-per-view at Daytona, was the first time they ever had like a $300,000 advance.
Wow.
Now, they pulled me out of that, put Jeff Jarrett in there. Now, that goes to show that it didn't hurt. We would have sold that place out.
Right.
And really very little issue.
Yeah.
And that's something, too. There's several people in this business that I'm almost automatically going to draw money with, and he's one of them, or used to be.
Yeah, you guys had some real good chemistry together.
Yeah. And it's because we both were able to give. he was always doing for me. His style is real easy. It's like doing a Three Stooges gig. That's what he calls it. You know, when he does his face, you know, that's how that's his comeback, and it's real simple, and the people buy it.
Yeah.
Today is like still Hulk Hogan. You know, a lot of people say he's not the greatest worker in the ring, but as far as you rating him as far as psychology, what would you say about Hulk Hogan and his psychology? Do you think he has it or no?
I think he had what he needed to have. Hulk Hogan was a product. It was produced by Vince McMahon. He had some of the greatest workers in the world work with him to make him what he was. I think that a midget could have gotten quite a bit of notoriety if he'd beaten all the guys Hogan hit. I mean, think about it. Hogan was a chainsaw mill, man. You wrestled him one time and you got your ass beat. He beat the best. Well, if I serve you chicken shit and tell you it's good and that's all you got to eat, guess what? After a while, you're going to learn to like chicken shit. As far as a great worker, I think he could do some things. I think he did what he had to do. I think he did a good job of it with the tools that he was given. And he made the most of it by far, whether I like it or not.
Hogan and his place in, I guess, this political structure.
Oh, Hogan was the man. You know, Eric listened to him, you know. I will say Hogan is probably the Zen master, the master manipulator. He's, you know, the greatest of all time. He went up to WWF and beat Vince's son-in-law. How's that, you know what I mean? He's the best, man. He's, you know, he's the high chief, man. Best worker outside the ring there is.
He also aligned himself with you. Do you think he kind of was latching on to some of the success you were having because you were getting so over?
Well, you know, when I first turned heel, you know, I found out through some of the guys who were in the room, you know, Hogan called all the shots, man. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he would say who would win, who would lose. You know? So, and he'd tell Eric.
He wasn't in our locker room. He had his own locker room. So, but I mean, he was all right. You know, I mean, my honest opinion was that I mean, I could tell that he was a worker right off the bat.
Right.
You know, I mean, you knew very well. Not much of what came out of his mouth was the truth. He always had an agenda to everything he did and said. And they would say, "You're doing too much. You know, you got to stop doing that much. You know, that doesn't make sense." And oh yeah, and again, that's, as I was saying to you earlier, that's why later on, you know, when I finally got a chance to make it, you know, I was finally able to say, "No, fuck you. You know, you guys were pricks to me for so long. Now I'm a great guy." You know, I didn't forget any of that stuff. But they were exactly like that. They were all extremely lazy. I mean, when Marty and I came in there, it wasn't 2 months before he and I were closing every show with the Conquistadors. We'd go on last. Hogan would go on fourth or fifth before intermission. He'd be gone. Marty and I closed every show, and then when I went singles after that, I closed just about every show in my career in the WWF, and I was never getting main event pay until the end.
How did Hogan act towards you when you came in?
When I came into WCW,
right.
He was good to me. He was really good. We got along great with him until like at the end, right before I got my neck broken, shit. Like there was some, you know, tension over like creative shit and, you know, two different sides, you know, two different directions, kind of I don't know. And then there was like the stuff with the Horsemen too, you know.
Right. I'm gonna ask you about that too.
But for the most part, man, and not for the most part, dude, Hulk's a fucking good guy. He's a really good guy. He's very good to his friends, and you know, he said that stuff about me when I was from Bischoff shit canned me. He said like I couldn't cut the mustard or something on TV, so I said that stuff about him when I showed up on Vince's TV, and you know what? He never said a word about it. You know, he didn't care.
Right.
And I was when I moved back to Tampa, I used to hang out with him all, you know, see him all the time. And when he came back here,
business as usual.
Yeah, I loved him.
He wrote in his book that the sellout at Shea Stadium should be credited to him and Andre.
Well, then he should. Him and Andre wrestled in White Plains, New York. After that, McMahon wanted to try them out. They drew like 1,200 people in an arena that holds a 150,000. So he could only draw 1,400 people there. But in Shea Stadium, he drew that gate. He wasn't in Pittsburgh. He wasn't in Boston. He wasn't any place else where we turned away thousands of people. We sold out Washington at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at night we sold out Baltimore the same night. Hogan wasn't there. This guy is tremendous gull. I mean, for him to say something like that, that is guts. This is the same guy who says that he took wrestling out of the smoke-filled little back alley, whatever he called it, to mainstream. Before this idiot, and I'll call him an idiot, came into the scene, there was an Argentino Rocca who was wrestling in Madison Square Garden and all the other big arenas on a regular basis. And before Rocca, which is way before my time, guys like Jimmy Londas, the Shriner Lois, and so many other great guys were wrestling at the major arenas. And I'm speaking for myself after the Rock era. I wrestled in all the major arenas before this guy was ever heard of. For him to say that he's the guy who brought it to the arena, I find it disgusting and arrogant, and in fact, I will blame him as being one of the big guys who took it from the main arenas and took it back down to the small arenas, because I like to ask Hogan and anybody else, how often do they go to Madison Square Garden these days?
I think like twice a year, if that.
Not even that. They didn't go for a whole year.
Yeah.
Now they go once a year. They come to my town of Pittsburgh twice a year. Philadelphia here. Every place else. Seems to me like they are the ones who took it out of the main arena, and in fact he takes credit for bringing it to the main. I think it's such arrogant. Why don't he talk about the wonderful things he did to this business by being one of the wonderful steroid chemical robots that came to this business, which is an unfortunate and tragic thing because there have been a lot of deaths, drug related.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for the first time when he made his debut on MSG.
Hogan's first match in the Garden was with me. Yeah, and I was in the at the TV taping when Vince Sr. first laid eyes on Hogan, and I almost saw the dollar signs in his eyes myself. But I knew right away. I said, man, they here was this great big massive guy, had the look, and we're going to make this guy. And I was just getting ready to leave. I'd been there about a year, and I was on my way, and I was going back to Mid-South. And so at the Garden, I went to Vince Sr., and I said, Vince, I know you want to get this guy over. I said, what would you like me to do? And he paid me probably the greatest compliment that he could for a guy that had been in the business, 4 years. He said, Ted, he says, I know you'll do it right. You do it any way you want to. I said, wow, it's okay. So I went to Terry, and I said, I want to get you over big. And, he hadn't had too much experience at the time. And I said, here's what I'd like to do. And I said, man, I'm just going to, just trust me. And I said, I'm going to fly for you. And we went out and had a great match, But there's a match I'd like to have for my own personal, library.
Right.
If I could ever, I think somebody, do you really?
Yeah, it's black and white, but I think we might have a better copy of it.
But,
we'll have to dig it up
I'd like
somewhere.
to have that. But, I got him over, and I'll never forget, he said, man, thank you very much. He said, I owe you one. I owe you one.
Hulk Hogan, what was he like in the locker room? Was he out for himself, or was he a team player? You always hear Hogan stories. So.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, everybody's got a different opinion, It's kind of like one guy's rose is another guy's thorn bush.
Right.
But Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea was always very good to me. Let me tell you, Terry, when I went back to the WWF, and we saw each other, all the vignettes had been done. He knew I was coming in. I mean, he saw everything that was happening, before we ever laid eyes on each other. And the first time we worked was actually at a spot show, an outdoor spot show. And the first words out of his mouth to me was,
it's payout time. The second, okay, let's go back even further. After that initial match I had with him in Madison Square Garden, the very next time I saw him was he came in to actually work a show for Bill Watts, and in the locker room in Baton Rouge, shook hands with him. Hey, man, how you doing? Doing great. And he says, I still owe you one. I mean, wow, and everybody knows that Hulk pretty much, when he was on top there, he worked with who he was comfortable working with. He worked with who he thought, could get the job done, and work with him the best, and he chose to work with me, and he basically told me, he says, it's time for me to pay back that favor, man, and he did in Nines. It was great. I always thought, I have seen him go out of his way to help a lot of people. I see him as somebody that has never forgotten where he came from, and has always, repaid those favors. And he's helped a lot of guys. And just by being who he's been and carrying the standard for the business as long as he did. No matter what you think of Terry personally, personally I like him. Whether you like him or not, he's the guy. He was the goose that laid the golden egg, man. And he was the right guy at the right place at the right time and knew how to take advantage of it. And it takes it. A lot of guys will say, well, Terry was, Hulk Hogan was never a great wrestler. Well, he wasn't a great wrestler. He was a great performer. He was a great worker. He was a guy who knew how to make the most out of what he had and utilize it the best with whoever he worked with. And that's a great worker. He was always a great guy on the mic. Always. Terry always had tremendous charisma. And, but he's human too. Does he have bad days? Yeah, sure he does. Do you not think that every guy in the business that wanted a break hasn't called him and said, man, can you help me? Right. He has helped a lot of people. I think that I'd get to the point where I want to leave the phone off the hook too. And it's like, I think I would get to the point where I'd be looking at people and going, no, I hear what you're saying, but what do you really want? You know what I mean? Right. So I understand that.
Was there any worries when you were going into the feud with him about your size? Because most of the guys he was facing were huge. They're feeding him huge monster heels. And
no, because I knew how to work. Right. I knew how to use what I had and get it over with him. I couldn't go out and wrestle Hulk Hogan and stand there, and go move for him. I had to bounce. I had to bounce. I had to beg off. I had to take my cheap shots, and then when I could get him down, pound him. And it's all about psychology. Right. It's all about psychology. I had no problem with that. If Andre the Giant could work with a heel and get sympathy, right? I can work with Hulk Hogan, right? And I loved it. There are, I've heard a lot of people say, well, Hulk just didn't know when to pass the torch. That he wasn't really willing to pass the torch. And I don't know. I don't know that I totally agree with that. I think that if you're in this business, you're in the business to make money, and you are a businessman, and the product you're selling is yourself. So you're going to try to package that product the best way you can, sell that product the best way you can, and if it stops selling, well, I've got to repackage it and sell it some more. So it's a business of survival. The only thing that I would say, and the one thing I can say that I never did, was I never stepped over people. I never lied about people. I never stepped on people to present my package. And I don't think that Hulk Hogan ever did that either. I don't think he ever had to. But did he do what he had to survive? You betcha. Did he do what he had to continue to make that income and provide for his family? You bet he did. And I don't know enough to say, was he ever unscrupulous about it? I don't know. Right. To me, no. To me, never. I always have liked Terry. I consider Terry a friend. He's not somebody that You know, I haven't talked to him since I left the WCW. You know, like a guy, relationships in the business are like, you can like a guy, get along, think the world of him. You don't see him for 3 or 4 years, maybe 10 years, and then, but when you do see each other, it's like you just saw each other yesterday. Hey man, how you doing?
Impressions of Hulk Hogan the first time you met Hogan?
Very good guy, man. Very, very good, respected guy. And he's the king, bro. He was the man. He's the man in our business. He is the man. Okay? Even all the different guys right now, Hulk is still king of the hill.
Right.
And Hulk is a very, very good guy.
Was he always one of the boys, or as he got more popular with success?
He still one of the guys, man. He still sit down, crap, mess around with you and have fun, man. He's still one of the guys. I mean, if you came in the locker room, you see Hulk there. He's just like one of the guys. You see Hulk there, right next to maybe Owen Hart. You see, he's just like the next guy. He's a great guy, man.
Did the atmosphere change a lot when Hogan came in, as far as in the locker room? We touched on it a little bit. I mean, is there a lot of politics going on now at this time?
Well, Hulk didn't have a huge ripple effect across the locker room as much as he had across the front office, because Hulk has creative control. And, as far as the character Hulk Hogan, he had ultimate say in what happened. And he knew how to protect himself. And that's what kept him on top all these years, being able to take care of himself. But if you're sitting up there in the booking committee and you're spending 8 hours a day, 3 days a week, and a guy walks in at 4 or 5 o'clock on Monday and changes what you have planned, and we're coming up live in 2 hours, that causes mass confusion. Right. Because it doesn't just change his particular match, it changes it across the board.
So it's a problem.
So it was a problem for those guys that had to be the quick fix. Ultimately, thank God there was people with their butts in those seats that could book on the fly and change it and make it work, because this was right in the midst of Nitro. It was building and doing well. If people would have saw the mass confusion that was going on a lot of times at 6 o'clock behind the scenes, you wouldn't have believed it. Right. You would not believe it could be that organized, unorganized at 6:30 and come across that good at 8 o'clock. You'd never believe it.
What was your relationship like with Hulk Hogan?
Well, very good. I mean, see, I've been a dinosaur. I'm around so long. I know all these guys that can't bullshit me. I know when Hulk used to live in a van, back of a van in Pensacola Beach. And Hulk used to come see me when he played the guitar, when I wrestled, when he played guitar in Tampa. I know Hulk very well.
Rick Martel, who's a really dear friend of mine, and I used to live with, share an apartment. He also lived and shared an apartment with Hogan. And he told me and he told Hogan when we didn't know, he said, hey, you guys should hook up. Because he was friends with Hogan, big, like from the heart, and also myself from the heart. And so when I come to New York, there was a bit of a peace mat there. That's what made it so hard. And then what made it so hard was they never had somebody as a heel go boom so fast. And so because all of a sudden what started happening was these were the integral parts, so he could change Hogan versus Piper to WWF on the marquee. Right. So, I never hear thanks for the name, Anyway, and Hogan and Piper were already packaged. You didn't have to, but okay, here we go, and it's the war to settle the score. We'll have Piper do the job. Why? He's a champion. You want to come back in a tag? Why the fuck you want to beat me for? Right. No sense.
Now, the Hogan that walks in January of '84, straight out of Vern. I mean, this is before Cyndi Lauper and all that. We'll get to all that. But here's Hogan just coming in, and we don't know if it's going to succeed or not, right? Compare that Hogan's demeanor, humbleness, with the guy a year later that rode the '84 into '85 thing. Was it a different Hogan, or was Terry the same from January of '84 straight through?
Well, I think that all of us got a little rougher. Mm-hmm. I think all of us, everybody's playing for keeps. Hogan, with myself, I have never had a face-to-face confrontation outside the ring with Hogan. Nor has, I've heard, I've heard him say things behind my back. But that don't mean nothing to me. Stand in line there.
A brief period of time.
My memory is that Jerry Jarrett and I co-signed for Hulk's first car, and we never got reimbursed when he skipped out on his own territory. And Hulk, he made all this big money. You could at least pay him back for that car. I remember when Hulk first came in. I can't remember if he came to us from Florida or if I believe he did, and then went from us up to Vern, and then of course Vern to Vince. But he was one of those guys that when you saw him, you knew that he was going to be something special, just because he had such a unique look, and the voice, and at this time he was really just becoming the Hulk, and I think we kind of helped shape and mold him along that road by doing some, we were one of the first companies that sort of innovated the wrestling vignettes or the music videos and that sort of thing to help get guys over. We always felt that you could do more than just have somebody beat somebody in the ring to help them get over with the people, and we did some really entertaining and great little videos on the Hulk. And at the time he was there, Memphis was a great place to work. You get a lot of work there, but it was not ever a place that you were going to make a lot of money at that time, and you had to really want to be there and want to improve your skill or whatever, and know that that's what you're going to get to do there, because you certainly weren't going to get rich there. They just weren't. There were a lot of wrestlers there. The payoffs were spread thin, and even though we wrestle every night, the houses were at a lot of times not all that big, and so the payoffs were not that great. And I think that Hulk realized after he was there for a while that he just didn't think he was making enough money, and was going to try to go on somewhere where he could make more money. And then of course he went on up for Vern Gagne, and then came back through after he was the Hulk, and he and I had some pretty memorable matches then, and I like to think that I think that he would say that he probably learned a little bit working with me. We had some pretty good matches, and a lot of people knock Terry, but I can't knock the guy. He's probably the best self-promoter that has ever come along in this business, and that's what you have to be in this business to be successful. And nobody's done it any better than him. And he made a lot of money for himself, made a lot of money for other companies, and really helped bring a lot of attention to this business. All I can say is more power to him.
With him?
No, when I went to TV for the first time, the very first time Hulk was there as a heel, and
Okay.
I met him. He was a friend of Larry Sharp, who trained me and my brother, and he came out and we talked for a few minutes outside the dressing room.
Was he cool?
Very cool.
Did he stay
couldn't
cool?
have been cooler.
Over the arc of his career, it was Hogan.
I've had people, I know a man that I trust as much as any man in this business, and I believe him. And he told me in the last couple of years that Hulk has changed. But
now?
Yes. I would have to see that for myself, because, we'll tell you later.
Okay.
Hulk was good to me.
How was he in the ring?
Good. Never hurt you. Sometimes when he dropped the leg, his ass would hit your face. One time I worked him like 3 times in a row. I had an imprint of his balls right here, and one of his ass landed on my face when he was dropping the leg, but never a problem. He was good. He'd ask you, I don't know, are we throwing out kayfabe here? Kayfabe's dead, right?
I mean, you
It's
can't close
done.
the barn door after the animals
You're
are
right
out.
about that. But he'd ask if you wanted to get some color. And of course, I never said yes. I never asked anybody to get color. I remember one time I was down.
Oh, he would say to you, "Do you want me to get color for you?"
Yes. Yeah, I'm telling you, he got me my job.
What was your reactions when Hogan was coming in? Because you got to know right away, you know.
Well, when Rick double-crossed me for the title.
Yeah.
In other words, he took Dusty's job 2 days before the pay-per-view. And, you know, my first reaction was no, you know. He said, well, I'm going to keep the title. I said, no, you're not. You know, I said, that's not what we talked about. That's not the agreement on which, you know. And, Rick, that simply ain't going to happen. I mean, you know. And we had long, big discussion on that. And, you know, after probably 15 or 200 promises that he made, you know, for the future, I said, okay, you know, let's go ahead and just get out of this cage match the best way we can. And then really, I thought maybe he had stubbed his own toe there, where with Hulk coming in, Hulk wasn't going to lose, no matter what he had told Rick. You know, they would trade off a few. I mean, he beat Rick 4 straight, you know, and pinned him 4 straight. And that certainly didn't do Rick any good at all. So I figured, well, you know, maybe after winning 4 straight, and then he went to his buddy, what's his name?
Savage? You mean as far as the title?
Yeah, he went the Butcher, the Barber.
Oh, Beefcake, Brutus Beefcake, Ed Leslie.
Yeah, in other words, okay, he went from Flair, and then he chose his next opponent.
Yeah.
Which was the
Butcher, I guess, at the time.
Butcher, the Beefcake, whatever. And I mean, obviously the buy rate was horrible. The match was horrible. So it was like, okay, boom, Vader to the rescue, right?
Yeah.
Let's resurrect this thing. And I sat down with Eric and said, look, you know, the guy just went 4 straight on Ric Flair. He just beat, you know, and the best thing for Hogan, the best thing for Vader, the best thing for this company is with Flair as my manager, because Harley was hurt at that time. Flair was walking out with me as my manager. With Flair as my manager, I said, I have to go over. I said, one, you owe me one from the deal with the Stargate thing with Flair. But the best thing for the company is, you know, I've got to go over this first time on Hogan. And I'm not talking about a clean 1, 2, 3, but I'm talking about, I mean, I don't care. Give Flair a bazooka and shoot him in the back.
Yeah.
You know, somehow let me walk out of that belt and get the heat. Because, you know, no matter how hard I walked out in a match against Hogan, and no matter how hard I tried to get the people to hate me, I mean, they were cheering me and booing Hogan at this time. You know, it was getting to the point where it was very obvious Hogan either needed to quit or become a heel.
Yeah.
Which obviously he eventually ended up doing, but so. And at one point had told Eric, you know, that I would have to consider, you know, if you don't do what's right for me, if you don't want to do what's right for me, if you don't want to do what's right for Hogan, if you don't want to do what's right for yourself, then do what's right for the company. Because you imagine had I went over that first match with Terry, right, and had Terry had the sense, I mean, you talk about a swerve. I mean, he kicked out of my he got up off my finish before the series.
Yeah.
And he told me, you know, I was told to give it to him, and he was going to lay there.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, he got up. And well, you know.
What are you thinking at that point?
Well, I'm thinking, you know, Jesus.
Yeah.
This is how these guys get over. They backstab you, and you know, I mean, I thought, what a, you know. And I was making good for the era. I mean, you know, I wasn't making the kind of money Hogan's making, and I certainly wasn't making the kind of money Bret Hart's making. But for that time, I was making right at that 7-figure mark, and that was a lot of money for the time, and it's a lot of money today. But you know, had to give a lot of thought, you know, about flat, you know, just saying no, look, this is the way it's going to be, or you know. You can fire me and I'll go up and talk to Vince.
Yeah.
And looking back on that one, that's without question that's what should have happened, because the next 3 matches with me and Hulk would have, the kind of business we could have done, you know, would have far surpassed what we did, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. There were a lot of the newsletters anyway, you know. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. We're saying that Hogan Vader is going to be a shoot because you were just pissed at that point and you just said, I've had it. Was there any truth to that?
No, I'm professional, and I've never gone in the ring and intentionally tried to hurt anybody. I know I have hurt people, accidentally, and I know I've been hurt accidentally a lot, but no.
I don't know which match in the series it was. It might have been match number 2 from Baltimore, from the Baltimore pay-per-view, the one where Bruno Sammartino presented Hogan with the award, whatever. It was a really short match, and at that point, were you unmotivated at that point when you get in there, and that's all you got was 3 minutes, I think it was, with Hogan?
My memory at this point failed me. I don't really recall that, but
okay.
I will tell you this: if it was a 3-minute match, it's because Terry wanted it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry had complete control.
Yeah.
And never in my career had I gone out to do a pay-per-view and did 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And certainly would have not done so. Unless that's what he said that he was doing, or he might have just changed his mind when he got out there.
Well, everybody, I remember it was a big story at the time. Everybody was just shocked that it would, it went, that short amount of time.
But if you're saying it happened, so I believe you. I don't recall that, but when you're in the ring with Terry and he says, "Let's go home," and if it's 3 minutes or he's in control.
Yeah.
And so I would have had nothing to do with that, whether he decided to do that before or during the match.
Yeah.
So you'd have to put that one on Mr. Hogan.
Was there a lot of problems, and not trying to dissect this thing too much, as far as working with Hogan, the cage match that you did with Hogan, apparently, from what I understand, and I could be wrong, and that's why I'm asking, the finish of the cage match was vetoed several times because Terry Hogan didn't want to look prone to pinfall, more or less. Is there any truth to that the finish had when Flair came down, and originally it was rumored to be that you guys were to have left Hogan laying as you were, as you were on top of him, you were in control, but then it wound up that Hogan wound up getting out of the cage, and it just wound up with you.
Yeah,
and Flair.
Terry was famous for agreeing to stuff. Yeah, sure, sounds good. And then the day of the match, say, no, this is what it's going to be. An hour before the show.
Yeah.
So that, it gives you really no opportunity whatsoever to try to compromise or change the situation. And I mean, like when we were in Vegas and they said, "Cherry wants you to powerbomb," he's gonna lay there because he thinks it'd be good business. And then he gets up and calls a spot with me. And I couldn't believe it. It's the most unprofessional thing anybody had ever done.
Yeah.
And certainly if I was going to get upset and would have wanted to double cross him, I would have done so in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And didn't do so. I continued to be a professional and trying to feed my family. So.
Yeah. What was at the time that Hogan came? Like I said, it was a completely different time in WCW than it is today. What was the locker-wide reaction to Hogan coming? Were people shaking their heads? Were people happy because business was going to be up? Or,
Well, for the most part, the people were on guaranteed contracts, so it really wasn't going to affect them.
Yeah.
One way or the other. I mean, but I think the Hogan coming to WCW was perceived as a positive. Certainly it was going to be good for business and the crowds were going to improve, and maybe you weren't going to make more during that contract, but if you were one of the top guys, you could certainly ask for more money the next contract.
Yeah.
So the general perception was, yes, it was very good. And again, I just was extremely adamant about that first match. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Had we been able to, I don't want to use the word talk Terry into it because he wasn't going to be talked into nothing he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
But had somebody had the ability to, force the situation, that would have been, what Hulk and I could have done in terms of business after I beat him.
Yeah.
Would have been phenomenal. We could have sold out,
absolutely,
football stadiums,
Yeah. Remembers working with Hogan.
Hogan was just like a dream come true. a champion, a true champion, and I feel comfortable working with him. He would let me do anything I wanted to do to help me get myself over. He was just a real sweetheart to work with. And the last time I worked with him was in '95. Was the same.
Now, was it true that Hogan basically gave you some advice about, getting paid?
Hogan told me once, he said, he came in the dressing room where we was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the Spectrum. And he said, Kamala, he said, brother, you putting asses on the seat. I hope you getting paid because I'm getting mine. And that started me to thinking. So, I went to Vince a few times, but Vince said, if you think you can make more money somewhere else, you're welcome to go. I don't want to hold you back from making money, but there wasn't nowhere to go then.
Wow. Did you talk to Vince about it?
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah.
And what was the outcome?
Well, he told me I was welcome to go.
Did you get to
No,
see...
I stayed there because there was nowhere else to go.
Did you see, increases in pay or no?
No.
What was Hulk like then versus later? Any difference?
Actually, Hogan's a friend of mine. I just actually talked to him 2 days ago. I talked to him on the phone. But of course, he was Hulk Hogan. I was Jabroni Joe, Big Jim Duggan. So we didn't have. He just came in and crushed me. But then over the years, he remembered me doing the job for him. I remember Hulk Hogan, of course, and we've crossed paths many, many times. And he's helped me out. The guy gets more bad press than anybody. He's not a bad guy, because his boy was in the car wreck and crippled the other kid and everybody. But Hogan's like, he stuck by his boy. Even though he took all that heat, he stuck by his boy. But Hogan's like, hey, it's my son. He's not going to just dump on the kid. And he took all that heat. And then when they went through the divorce, Nick, the boy, went with Linda against Hulkster, which, I think Hulk's not a bad guy, he just gets a lot of bad press.
Yeah.
And then the N-word where they taped him at home. Remember, he said something, and they taped him, and they took.
Was
him
that
out.
on the sex tape?
No, I think it was separate.
He got himself over there having a cock like a beer can. That was all right.
I didn't pay that close of attention, brother. But
how could you not?
Success changed Hulk Hogan as far as his personality goes, with his ego and stuff, or to you at least, was he the same old Hulk Hogan?
I think it had to. To answer that question very honestly, I don't think he had to put his guard up like Vince McMahon had to put his guard up. Hulk made some big money through the years, and all of a sudden, these little vermin that get into our business on the ancillary side, trying to get in on the action, would be approaching Hogan for side deals and things like that, and became after a while, I think, a constant nuisance to him. Number one, he had an exclusive contract with the WWE. So he had to honor that, didn't want to get in trouble, and these people were very persistent. He just didn't need it, so he became guarded. And sometimes because of the work schedule, he became a little downright ornery, where he wouldn't pout, but he would sure make his feelings known. He didn't hide them.
Right. Whose idea was it for you to team up with Hogan and do that one match in Minnesota, I believe?
That was Hogan's.
Okay.
That was definitely Hogan's. I would not volunteer for anything as insane as that. And as a matter of fact, I think that really the big build-up on that was the training sessions we went through for 3 or 4 weeks, which were, we can speak candidly, right? I'm not Joan Rivers, 100%. But it was a ball buster.
Do you think that Hulk Hogan was a good or bad thing in the end for WCW?
Well, I think he was a good thing.
Right.
I don't think WCW without Hulk Hogan would have reached the pinnacle, the height that they did, where for 86 weeks dominated the WWF, the WWE.
Right.
Hogan was a big part of that.
Did he try and look out for you there?
No. Hulk looked out for himself.
Right.
He did at other times though look out for me, and very close. There was a great association between Hulk Hogan and Mean Gene Okerlund, and I was the one that picked up the phone and said, "I've been told I'm going to be inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame at WrestleMania, and Hulk, I'd like to have you present me." He says, "Linda, give me the calendar." He said, "I got it open? Yeah, I'll do it." I said, "Okay, Vince or Kevin Dunn will be calling you with the details." And, is great. He buried me on it. Talking about all the running around, I had my wife in the front row there. But no, he's a great guy and a good friend.
What do you think of his reality show?
I think great. This guy reinvents himself every 10 years. I mean, he did it initially with Rocky, then on to a movie career after the WWE or during that period of time, a television series, and now back with this reality show, and everywhere I go. My barber talks about it all the time.
AWA.
Oh, Hogan was phenomenal. When he came into the AWA, Vern wanted him to be a heel. So he put him with a horrible human being, Johnny Valiant. This guy couldn't get over turning on a light. And I don't care how many people Hogan beat, people wanted him to be babyface. They loved him. And that's the way it went.
Did you know that he was going to be a huge star in the business?
Oh, yeah.
Later
I
on?
saw him in '79 in Georgia. I walked in the dressing room, he was this huge, and I just saw, this kid's got it. He's one of those guys that just had it.
Was Hogan different to work with in the WWF than he was in AWA because of,
No.
bigger star?
No. He never changed. He wasn't that way. A lot of guys don't like him because they didn't get to work with Hogan. The reason they didn't get to work with Hogan is because they couldn't draw money with Hogan. And you guys that are sitting home right now and are saying, Hogan screwed me. If you could have drawn money, you'd have been there. If you could have been the worst human being in life, you'd have been there to draw money. The only reason you didn't work with Hogan was you couldn't draw money. That's simple. He'd work with a grape if he could draw money. That's simple.
The Hulkster have.
I think he's one of the, that I mentioned earlier, the five-headed monster. And I think the individual that told me that that's what they call him up there would be hot if he sees this. But he's one of the five heads. And so he's got a lot of stroke, man. And the truth of it is, he's Hulk Hogan. He's done something right in this business, and his name, there's something there. It's Hulk Hogan, man. Maybe I'm a mark. Maybe that's the mark in me, but if you're watching this video, chances are you're a mark too. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you know where I'm coming from when I say Hulk Hogan, and just to get him signed, I'm sure they had to give up some, some kind of creative control.
Oh God, I'll never forget it. Like I said, standing by the curtain, wanting to see what was going on. I'll never forget it. Here I am, just came up, and this was when I was trying out. I hadn't even got signed yet. And Pat Patterson, real nice, took to me, and I took to Pat Patterson, always nice to me. Right. Great guy, never negative, fantastic. We always joked with each other. Pat seen I was standing there and Hogan's getting ready to go through the curtains. I'm just watching. Pat says, "Come here." And he takes me out there inside the arena. Like where you'd come through the curtain about 15 feet in, and we're standing off to the side. He says, "Just watch us." All of a sudden that music hits, Hulk Hogan's music. Remember, this is like, right 91, and things were still rocking and rolling, Right. Man, that music hit, Hulk Hogan's music, man, he came through the curtain, and just like, boom! That initial pop, It was just like it was overwhelming.
Right.
And Pat was going, "Look." Now I'm watching Hogan walk, and I'm just looking at the fans. What a great experience.
Yeah.
So, I've always looked at Hogan, God, he's the guy that, that was part with Vince McMahon,
right,
working together, that took it from what it was and excelled it to a totally different level. Mm-hmm. Hulk Hogan's, the immortal Hulk Hogan. He's the one that we started riding that wave. Some people don't want to say that, but it's the reality of the fact, So look at Hulk Hogan today. If it wasn't that strong, why is Hulk Hogan still going strong?
Right.
Already been back at WWE, got his own show. Everyone knows who he is. So because of what he had built and how over he was, and what WWF had did with him, and what he had also done for the business, was just fantastic. So a lot of respect for him, because he was, he paved the way.
Hogan at MSG, I think you guys worked 3 consecutive shows, and I think the third one was in a cage. It was the bloodbath.
Yeah.
What are your memories of working with Hogan?
Well, the first one coming out of WrestleMania 1,
right?
The first time garden hadn't been sold out in about 200 years. We came into about half a house. We was going, don't worry, it's good. And we just followed this, which was true. We had followed just the first pay-per-view wrestling event that they'd ever had, and it was a big with Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T, and this and that, and they'd spent months and months in that. And then I came out cold with Hogan.
If we want to understand, if that didn't happen, there might not have been a WWF. Without the first WrestleMania, Vince pretty much gambled on that show.
That's what I heard. Yeah, all his money was all his money in that. And I never knew he was part of that Evel Knievel jumping Grand Canyon thing.
I didn't know that.
I was watching an Evel Knievel show or Vince McMahon show or something about that.
He was financially tied to that.
Yeah, he was partners. They were.
Wow.
He was into it.
I did not know that. When you worked with Hogan, were your paydays a lot bigger than usual? A lot of guys say that.
Well, you knew they were always going to be good, you know. And then for the NBC, you get the extra NBC money from it too. So there was nothing wrong with that.
Ricky Steamboat once said that you guys outthrew Hogan during your run. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. I don't know. We did good business. I didn't really keep track, but we did good business everywhere we went. But in my time, Hogan was the man.
Was he sociable with the guys, or was he a prima donna?
He wasn't a prima donna, but he had his own crew.
Who was in his crew?
Oh, Beefcake and
Flair.
Yeah, and Nasty Boy. A few guys around him that he had his guys. Probably guys he could trust. I know Beefcake was around him because they were together from grade school or high school or something. So
right.
It wasn't so much that Beefcake was a kiss ass. Just him and Beefcake were growing up. We're partners for a long time.
What about Hogan? What was he like in and out of the ring?
I like Hulkster. Hulkster's incredible in the ring. I mean, he probably has the most charisma there ever has been in wrestling. Him, maybe The Rock that's come along now and that stuff. But he personified. Hulkster came along at a time when they'd never seen a big man that could actually sell. And here you got a guy that looked away the tan, the blonde hair, the California look, the big buff body and that stuff. And also here you got a guy that sells. People never see it. People see the big guy just stand there and nothing happened to him. And also people are just like, wow, they just get with this guy, And outside the ring, Hulkster's a great guy. I mean, I've seen him in public. I was on the sets of Thunder in Paradise. All those trams go by. Hulkster would stop, wave to them all, right in the middle of sets and that stuff. He'd wave, say hi to anybody want an autograph, he would sign for him. Hulkster was always very good that way.
Did you get along with him, Barbarian? Or?
Yes. He's a good man. You talk to him, he's down to earth, You have no problem with him. Down to earth, he talked to us, and he's a good man, very smart.
Who was the locker room leader around this period? Was there a locker room leader, or was there a lot of cliques and stuff?
No, there's no locker room.
There was no cliques. Not like the NWA. NWA had many more cliques.
Right.
Really, WWE, everybody was pretty much on their own. You had a couple of them and to hang out together,
What about Hogan? Did he change at all when he went to WCW from when you guys knew him in WWF? Well, when you were there, was he the same Hogan, or did he change?
Well, the only change in my eye, he was a bad guy.
Right.
In the WWF, and you always know him as a good guy. Now he come to WCW as well, and NWO.
Right.
Black, that's a big change.
Yeah, but Hogan, he remained the same kind of person though, because he was the top dog at WWF. He was the top dog at WCW.
Level-headed.
He never changed. He's always straightforward and very nice.
What was Hulk Hogan like at the time?
He was on a different level, When we went to the first time, Macho Man was there.
Right.
Hulk was there, and I remember Boss Man was there a little bit for a little while, and he was on his way out. So there's a few guys, and my brother got along with Macho and everything, so we talked to him a little bit about what was going on. And I remember one time we talked to Hogan about what was going on, and he kind of gave us, the scoop.
Right.
He was pretty upfront, I don't know Hulk. I know of him, and I can say hi to him. I've been to his house, I've been on his boat, I've done a few things with him, but I don't really know the guy that well. Whether tell what his character is, whether he's right or wrong, or tell me the truth or not. So I don't know.
Did things change up there when Hogan quit and Bret took the ball?
Yeah, I think they're at a point there now. They're just kind of grasping. They were already in the shit, with all the court,
right,
and testing and the sexual. I mean, there was so much shit going on. Then when Hulk left, it was like now it dropped down to another level, and Britt tried to pick it up, and there's just no way he was going to do it.
Is it true before you worked with Hogan, it took about a year for that to happen? Is it because Vince didn't fully trust you?
Can you stop for just a second?
Oh, that's the question. Yeah. The question again was before you started your series with Hogan, it took about a year for that to happen, and I heard that Vince didn't fully trust you yet, or
I don't know if it was Vince any more than it probably could have been Hogan too.
Right.
Back while all this was happening in the early 80s, they were in Kansas City one day, and I had a show running in Municipal Memorial Hall across the river from them. And the longer I thought about this, the more it ticked me off, so I drove over there. And of course I could get in the building, whoever police would be like someone that was very well known around here coming to one of the events here. They don't have a problem getting in. So I walked up into the dressing room area, and it was like this death silence fell over it. And Terry was standing there talking to the two Funks sitting in the background, and they're looking at me like, oh my God, what's he here for? And I open hand slapped Hogan, and not in the face, in the rib cage. It really stings if you get hit right hard in the rib cage.
Right.
He said a couple of words, and he spun around, and he saw who it was, and he just fell back into a chair. And by then Gorilla Monsoon had run in, and a whole bunch of people. And Hogan said, I thought the first time I saw you, you'd have a machine gun or a Tommy gun. I said, no. I have one though, but it's not that big.
Right.
So I don't, who knows from...
What was the heat stemming from again?
Me losing $750,000 in the Midwest.
Right. How did that involve Hogan?
Hogan was the head honcho for Vince at that time, and he was in Kansas City working in my city, or theoretically everybody had their own places.
Right.
They just tried to take over the territory.
Hulk Hogan, what was he like in the locker room?
Hulk Hogan was to himself. I don't know him that well personally.
Right.
But he was always to himself, has stuff, and say hi to you. That's about it. And with me, he never did anything wrong to me.
Hogan was over on the tour, I believe it was like in the early 80s, probably 1980 actually, and you teamed with Hulk on a lot of occasions. What was that like?
Yeah, it was good. Hulk was quite the character. I used to like to rib him a lot, and he was something else. So let me go back on the story about Hulk. That incident with the Giant, he was actually sitting in the row behind me, and when I told the bus driver to pull over, and I actually had my earrings in, and I took them out and put them in my bag. Now, I didn't know this later. Hulk told me this a couple of days later. He says, Alan, I'd like to tell you something. And I said, what is that? He says, when I saw you reach out in your bag, he said, I ducked up under the chairs. And what are you talking about? He says, I never seen nobody talk to Andre like this. I figured this guy's got a gun. He's going to come out, he's going to turn around, he's going to shoot him, look over, see me, and then he's going to shoot me too. I said, why did I do that? He said, I don't know, maybe you were mad, you were going to shoot everybody, And he told me that. I just busted out laughing. I said, you kidding? He said, I swear, man. He says, I thought you were going to pull a gun out and shoot the guy.
Wow. What was Hulk like back then?
He was a good guy. He was one of the boys, he still didn't have the push that he wound up getting years later, and he was a pretty good guy at that time.
Do you feel he was a better worker back then than he was later years? Or?
Oh, without a doubt. He never was a great worker. He was always a good talker, had charisma up the kazoo. I mean, this guy has unbelievable charisma, but he was never a great worker.
Hulk Hogan, what are your impressions of the Hulkster?
I think he is God's gift to wrestling, and I think I will never see. I don't bite the hand that feeds me, and I don't bite the hand that fed me. And in Topeka, Kansas, he got in the ring with the genius, Lanny Poffo, and he led me, a la Terry Funk, a la the late Gino Hernandez. He took the limited ability that the genius had to offer. He liked my gimmick. He scratched me down the back and he says, "I'll sell it like Jim Barnett."
I still remember that today. To this day, I remember yourself.
It was a fun match, but some of the boys said, "Well, it's not wrestling." Well, please, it may not be wrestling, but can't I be the only comedian in a very serious business?
Right.
See, I believe in variety. I believe when you go to the circus, you need the fat lady, and you need the flying trapeze, and you need the two-headed geek. Let's have it all, and then hopefully, as a paying customer, you might like one of them, or both of them, or either of them, or something. But if every wrestler wore the same colored trunks and did the same things, it wouldn't be special, would it? If we all had physiques like Lex Luger, it would no longer be different. Okay? I'm making an excuse for having a poor physique. But my point is, how can I ever say anything bad about Hulk Hogan when he actually got in the ring and did a job for somebody that couldn't even beat him to the bathroom if it were a real fight? Hulk Hogan was the man. And for one brief shining moment, he made the genius the man. And God bless Vince McMahon for allowing it to happen.
When Hogan came into the company, how did things change?
Once again, that's out of my league, man. It's just like I'm not sure how it changed company-wise, but to the boys and all that, nothing, man. I mean, he was really cool, man. Hogan's cool as hell, man, and he always was there for everybody, and was, he had his own dress room and stuff, but he would come out and it wasn't, snobby at all. Real cool, real laid back, and I love him.
At the time, what was he like?
I don't know.
Did you get along with him? I mean,
no, actually, I think Buzz had problems with Hogan back, steroid related. Buzz owed him money for steroids from before I even knew Buzz, and somehow Buzz and I are put in the same picture a lot of times. A lot of people thought Buzz and I were brothers. I mean, blood brothers, but Hogan, I don't really know him that well. I know that, he never wanted to work with me as Doink. Sad. But it is what it is.
Do you consider him one of the boys, or do you consider Hogan by himself? And
you know what? He's got his circle of friends, and I'm sure that they consider him the epitome of, the boys. But no, I personally, I don't. I'm not going to say anything nasty about the guy, but I don't even know him.
All right. What are your memories of, I guess, Hulk Hogan around this time, pre-NWO? What are your memories of him?
Well, Hulk changed the business, for no matter what you think of him, or how his work was or whatever. I mean, he changed the industry completely. Of course, it was Vince McMahon behind that, but I mean, that totally changed the business completely. It really did. It spiked the business in so many different ways, and I think also harmed smaller promotions eventually, but because they all wanted this, larger than life promotion, but absolutely put more attention on the wrestling business as a whole.
As a person, did you get along with him?
Oh yeah, he was a nice guy. He's always personable. I think they see how you work, and that people treat you how you perform in the ring. I guess sometimes if you're rotten, you don't get as much attention. If you're good, they respect you. There's still that little bit of deep down respect of this guy can perform or not. So you're treated, I think, off your performance a lot of times.
Teaming up with Hulk Hogan.
Oh man, he's awesome, man. Hulk, you know, him touching you is like gold.
Right.
He makes you. You know what I'm saying? You were associated with that guy. He was awesome in there. He would talk to me. He would give me advice. While we're in the match, and you know, help me, and it helped me learn. I mean, he was tremendous, man.
I was going to ask you, like, how huge was it to debut with the immediate rub from Hogan?
Huh?
I was going to ask you, like, how huge was it to debut with the immediate rub from Hogan?
Oh my God, I was like freaking, man. You know, I'm like, this is the big baby face for the WWF, and I'm out there with him. Right. It's like when I got to be his cheerleader, man. When Quake put him out.
The memories of Hulk Hogan.
My God, well, you know, I just watched him for so many years, like everybody did, and then my first exposure with him was standing in the middle of the ring with The Undertaker and watching this entrance that I just never experienced before. And never since, probably, I guess.
When I was a kid, we'd go, and I was like 12, 13. We call it the Hogan chill. First time you see, it's like goosebumps.
Yeah, exactly.
It was crazy.
And to be a part of that, and to be standing in the middle of the ring with The Undertaker, and here he comes. And when Undertaker beat him for the championship, you know, early on there, my God, I guess that's when I really got smart to the WWF and the wrestling business. Was that when I found out that Taker was going to beat Hogan for the belt, I'm going, man, I'm going to be manager of the world champion. Oh God, I can't wait to see my check. Because if you're manager of the world champion, you got it. Check came and it was the same as I always got, you know. Oh shit, that's a work too.
Memories of matches with Hulk Hogan in the AWA.
Hulk Hogan and Ken Patera in the AWA. Hulk got to the point after about a month. Well, I think we wrestled like 20 times a month. So Hulk came to me. He says, Kenny, he says, instead of saying, headlock, rope, drop down, arm drag, leapfrog, we'll just call the numbers. 1 will be throw off, 2 leapfrog, 3 turnbuckle, 4 clothesline, 5 full Nelson, so on and so forth. So we had 1 through 10. We went on for like 6 months like that. It worked out perfect. Never called headlock, drop down, arm drag, leapfrog, The fucking number system. Hey, we're the first digital wrestlers. Go ahead.
We were just talking about Hogan. Did you realize he was going to be a big superstar later on down the line? Did you see it in him?
Yeah.
And did his personality change? I mean, from the AWA to WWF, when he was making the money and he was on TV on top of the, pretty much the top baby face of the company, did you see him change personality-wise as getting a big head? Or was he still one of the boys?
No, absolutely not. No, Hulk never changed. The money changed.
Right.
The money changed, but no.